Hello everyone, during my years as a PhD student, I had the opportunity to teach many courses. And after finishing my PhD, I have to admit that probably teaching is one of the things that I will miss the most if I don't do it again. Teaching during your years as a PhD student is something nobody prepares you for. You might spend your days in complex theories and very complicated research methods, but then you walk into a classroom full of students and you suddenly realize how much of a different skill it requires to be a good teacher and to be able to transfer that knowledge to students. The real challenge isn't the fact that you don't know the material, is that teaching is not about what you know. It's more about building a connection that helps others actually learn. And that's also when imposter syndrome can really kick in. You might ask yourself, am I actually really qualified to teach this to students? So if you're starting your first role as a teaching assistant, or you have been teaching for the past moments, but you feel overwhelmed, this video might be for you. I'm sharing with you the practice strategies that I learned during my experience, and that could hopefully help you as well. Let's start with something very simple. You don't need to be a professor to be a good teacher. And to be honest, your biggest strength as a fresh teaching assistant is that you remember how it feels to be confused, frustrated, and then finally have that moment when everything becomes more clear. And believe me, that is a massive advantage for you. That recent memory of being a student and then transitioning into a more teaching role really helps you communicate with the students clearly those steps of the lecture that actually might be more confusing and difficult to teach. That recent memory really makes you a better guide than someone that hasn't been on the other side for so many years, as a lot of professors, I would say, you know. And I like metaphors, I guess. So here you have one. Think of yourself as a bridge between a student and a professor. Think of yourself as a bridge, which objective is actually to connect where students are now with where they need to go. And bridges are built from knowing both sides. Now let's talk about preparation. I already said that in another video, but avoid overloading your slides. Putting everything you need to say on a slide might give you a bit of confidence that you will not forget what you actually need to cover in each slide, but will also make the students a lot more confused, will make it difficult for them to really follow what you're saying. So I would suggest to focus more on the experience of the learning. So what is your message that you want to give in every slide? Focus on the experience and how you want your student to engage with that information you are giving to them. And I know this might sound a bit abstract, so let me give you 3 simple tips on this point. So the tip number 1 is to focus on the objective. Your presentation should clearly have a goal. So try to answer this simple question before even touching your PowerPoint or whatever you use to create your slides. By the end of this lecture, what you actually want your students to be able to do or know, and try to make it as active and concrete as possible. Do not make it very abstract, like understand linear regression. Try to make it more practical. For example, I want my students to be able to calculate a simple linear regression and be able to explain what the slope means in practical terms. And by knowing that, you know exactly where you want to go with this lecture. Tip number 2 would be to always ask yourself, from the point of view of the student, so what? Every topic needs a reason to matter. Not to you, but to them. For example, if you are teaching statistics or something related to statistics and you need to introduce what a p-value is, instead of starting from the theoretical point of view, just start by giving a simple example. How do we know that that new medication actually works and it's not only due to chance? And it will be much simpler for them to follow by having in mind what actually you can solve with this new concept, or how can you use that new concept to really answer to a very practical and concrete question. And tip number 3, still following this bridge analogy, would be to really try to connect the new concept that you're trying to teach with some familiar concepts that you already taught in the past or that the students are supposed to know in the course. So try to always build this connection between what they are supposed to know and what you're actually introducing now. A final tip I would like to give you in this point is to actually plan for 70-80% of the time that you actually have at your disposal. One, because it might happen that you actually are slower when you are teaching in front of people. And two, because it allows you to have the time to confidently answer questions that students might have. The first 5 minutes of your talk do not just set the tone and the expectations. They really determine if the students will see you as an ally for their learning or just as an additional obstacle to their graduation. Try to start human first and not content first. Share something real about yourself and why you care about what you are teaching. Tell them why you decided to start a PhD if you are a PhD student doing this as a teaching assistant. Tell them why you're interested in the topic and why your credentials make you a good fit for this position. Being honest and clear about this really builds credibility and a direct connection. Next, what I normally like to do is to set the environment to be considered by the students as safe. I normally try to ask a question where there is no specific good answer, but that encourages them to really speak. One very basic, but I think helpful question in this moment could be to ask something on the line of, what would you expect to know at the end of this course? Or, I don't know, if you are teaching something related to sustainability, which was my case, why are you actually interested in sustainability? And when you ask questions and you see that nobody is actually answering, what I've seen a lot of professors do, it's not actually what I do personally, but some professors really wait a long time. Even though there's complete silence after asking the questions, I don't know, they wait up to 6-7 seconds. On my side, this feels a bit weird. So normally what I do is that I ask a question, I wait a little bit, and then I say something on the line of, for example, okay guys, someone should answer because otherwise I don't know how to proceed here. This really depends a lot on your character and what is the tone that you decided to set with the students. Here comes the difficult part. How do you handle challenges real time? So here are 3 fears and how to handle them during your teaching. Fear number 1 is the question you don't know. You can always say, that's a great question. It's interesting because blah, blah, blah. I don't really have the answer to that question now, but, and then you can start to reason with the student. The student who asked that question probably has an idea about a potential way to answer that. And nothing is stupid at that point. You're having a clear discussion with the student and you're trying to understand together why this might be a difficult question to answer like that. It's okay not to know. As we said before, you can say that you need some more research in order to answer that question precisely. You can say that you have an idea on what could be a potential answer to that question, but that you want to make sure that you have the proper foundation to actually give a proper answer. And at that moment, you can also stop for a moment, write the question down so that you give also credibility that you're not just promising and not delivering. And why do you think this works? Well, students really appreciate intellectual honesty and the ability to be able to say, I don't know. It's okay that you don't know everything. And you don't have to fake authority in this case. Students respect intellectual honesty over fake authority. And fear number 2 is that dead silence after you ask a question they are supposed to answer. And instead of panicking and just rushing into answering yourself to this question, as we previously discussed, it's important for you to really try to get something from the students. So maybe wait a little bit, maybe try to engage a little bit more after the question, maybe try to reformulate the question in simpler terms, try to give an example, and then you will see that it will become much easier to receive a response. Fear number 3 is seeing like these empty eyes, confused faces when you actually introduce something that should not be that complicated in your mind. But again, since you are a PhD student and you are still a student, you should be able in these moments to really understand that this is a key point of your lecture and this is where you should stop and really pay attention to what actually needs a re-explanation. Because if you really just proceed and go on, I can assure you it's not going to get better, only worse. You can say something like, I see a lot of puzzled faces here, so let me maybe rephrase what you just said and please let me know what is not clear and how we can proceed from here. then maybe try a different approach. If you first tried to explain your concept just by using words and showing something on a slide, start with a different approach. Go on the blackboard, explain with a figure, with a drawing, or what I love the most, with a very concrete and simple example. And stop from time to time asking to the student if it's actually making sense or not. Always try to make the abstract become concrete and practical, because that's the way students will find it easier to understand and approach the concepts that you are trying to teach them. How you end a class determines what students remember and whether they will be excited or not for next time. Never just finish your class by saying, "Any questions?" That's it. Try to end by saying to them something like, if you had to remember only one thing from this class, that would be, and you will try to give your goal of the lecture that you started with in the beginning at this point. After doing this, you can clearly link the class of today with the class of tomorrow and tell them how the concepts that you actually introduce now will play in the future development of the course. And give them a concrete connection to the next class. Try to create at this point curiosity. This closing moment is also a good moment to share with them again your availability. If you're available via email, or if you have specific office hours where the students can come in, and just try to be approachable. They will find it much easier to interact with you if you make it clear that you are available for them. You are available for their questions. And to be honest, some of the best moments of teaching really happens during these office hours, when you have the possibility, a one-on-one or one-on-two, if there are two students coming from the same questions, to really interact with them and to show them what actually was missing, or to build with them an answer to a complex question. Here's one of the most important points that took me a bit of time to really understand. Your students do not need you to be perfect. They need you to be present, to be prepared, and to be genuinely invested in their learning. They already have Google, ChatGPT for perfect information if they want, and if they have the time to go through. What they need from you is really translation and connection of these concepts to make them clearly available and digestible. They need someone that really remembers what the struggle is during the learning process, and you are in the best position to understand this extremely well. And every class you teach will change you a little bit. You will learn how to make better examples. You will learn when is the right moment to ask questions to your students. You will learn how to make them more engaged in the class. And the teacher that you are today, or the teacher that you are in week 1, will never be the teacher you will be in the end of the course. You will see how much this will help you be more confident and really enjoy the teaching a lot more. And remember, your students are not your enemies. They're most of the time really just rooting for you. They want you to do an amazing job, because if you do a great job, it will be easier for them to learn. And students want engaging classes, clear explanation, and a fair assessment. And basically you want the same thing too, right? So try to walk into the classroom with curiosity about what you will learn together. Show passion for the course you're teaching, and I hope you have some, because it will become much easier to really make it enjoyable, not only for the students, but also for yourself. So if this helped you, you know what to do. Please drop a comment if you have any other advices you would like to share with other PhD students or students in general. I read every single comment. Well, I'm not sure I will have many, but I read every single one of them, and I will see you in the next one.